You are watching Daily Verse Devotion. Welcome to the channel. There are moments when a strange chill slips into the air, and you know something terrible is about to happen. But what if it isn't the wind, but the arrival of an angel that even time itself must hold its breath for? Scripture speaks of a messenger who needs no crown, yet his authority silences every living being. Today, we will look directly at a truth few dare to mention. There is an angel who appears only when mercy has run out. He arrives without warning, never late. Have you ever wondered, if such a messenger were sent down to earth, is there anything humans could still hide? According to ancient writings, this angel does not carry radiant glory, nor the songs of heaven. Only a heavy silence and a decisive authority. Destiny shifts the moment he sets foot. How many realize every one of those moments is perfectly chilling? No alarm sounds. No light gives warning. When the angel of death draws near, the air around you thickens, as if the world itself knows what will be lost. If tonight that very angel were to pass by your door, what would you do? Before we discover the true role of this messenger, please like, share, and subscribe so that those searching for truth won't miss out. Do you believe that a single, chilling silence is enough to warn those about to face the final boundary? Let's discover what Scripture truly reveals. The nature and mission of the angel of death. There are signs that something irreversible has begun, but most people miss them. When the angel of death is sent, it isn't a loud moment. It's the kind of hush that makes even the boldest hesitate. Shadows gather in the corners. Sometimes, the air seems to press down, and the sound of a clock ticking becomes all you can hear. That kind of silence carries a message. Heaven has decided. The time for pleading is over. Imagine you're sitting with family. There's a gentle warmth in the room. Then, for no reason, the atmosphere just shifts. The air grows heavy. Every word feels swallowed by the quiet. Some ancient texts even describe rooms where the strongest felt a chill crawl across their skin. That coldness isn't just the absence of warmth, it's a signal. Someone has come, unseen, but felt by everyone. No one ever sees him enter, but no one can ignore his presence. Lights flicker, the night deepens, people glance at each other, unsure why they suddenly feel exposed. Even those who claim not to believe sense it. Something beyond them has arrived. Have you ever wondered if our instincts know more than our minds allow? There's a strange order to it all. The angel's movements aren't random. He always arrives at the right place, at the exact moment. When he comes, his task is silent, but it is absolute. There are no mistakes, no hesitations, and when he leaves, nothing can be restored to how it was. Isn't it unsettling to realize that some endings happen so quietly and yet change everything? What would you do if you felt that heavy, breathless silence settle over your home tonight? Sometimes the most powerful messengers make the least noise. Maybe that's why his presence lingers long after he's gone. The Passover in Egypt. Egypt long ago. The city is tense. Night presses in from all sides, every window shut tight. Yet the darkness outside isn't the kind you can chase away with a lantern. There's a sense, deep and quiet, that something moves through the streets. A presence that can't be seen, yet no one dares to ignore. You can almost hear the difference in the air. No dogs barking, no voices from neighbors, just a strange, restless silence. Families gather around their tables, speaking in whispers, eyes darting to the door. Someone's hand trembles while they clutch a child close. Imagine waiting like that, with only the faint glow of oil lamps to keep away the fear. What would it feel like, knowing that the safety of your home depended on a single mark, a swipe of blood on the doorpost? This wasn't some ritual done for show. It was the only line between safety and judgment. In those hours, homes with the mark stood untouched. The angel moved past, not out of pity or anger, but obedience. For those without the mark, there was no warning, no second chance. Grief and panic erupted in the darkness. The sound of mourning replaced sleep. Some historians note that ancient Egyptians believed in many gods to protect their households, but on that night, none could stand in the way. Looking back, I wonder, if we lived then, would we trust in a visible sign or our own routines? When the boundary was honored, tragedy stopped at the door. But it was never about the strength of the family or the quality of their sacrifice. It was about the sign, a boundary set by something greater than fear or hope. Why do we sometimes ignore the boundaries that are meant to save us? That night, history shifted, not with thunder, but with a hush that left every heart listening for what came next. The angel's origin in nature. Most people picture the angel of death as a force of chaos or evil. The truth is far more complicated, and in some ways, more unsettling. This figure doesn't serve darkness. He doesn't wander the world on his own. Instead, he answers to a single authority. Every move he makes comes down from above. I've always found it striking how Scripture draws this line so clearly. The angel of death is not a villain. He's not even allowed to choose his own mission. He waits for one command, and when that order is given, he acts with absolute precision. He never shows up by accident. In the ancient stories, even his timing is evidence of a much bigger plan. Think of it like this. Imagine a messenger who only delivers a letter when told, never opening it, never changing the words. If you had to trust someone with a message that could decide the fate of a city, would you choose someone driven by emotion or someone who simply obeys? One of the most haunting moments recorded happens in Jerusalem. Judgment was coming. The angel lifted his sword poised above the city. And then, mid-air, God said, "Enough." Everything froze. Not a sound, not a breath. Even the angel stopped, suspended between heaven and earth. That's a detail that's easy to overlook. Judgment wasn't running wild. Heaven stayed in control the whole time. There was no mistake, no step too far. Have you ever wondered why some endings feel so measured, almost as if mercy still has a final say? I think about that story, and it reminds me, obedience can be heavy. Sometimes it means holding back, even when you could go further. The angel of death didn't make the call. He just listened. Judgment and divine control. Judgment. It's a word that can unsettle anyone, no matter how confident we seem. Most of us imagine chaos when we hear it, a wild force, impossible to stop. But in the old scriptures, there's a detail that changes everything. Judgment is never out of control. Picture a storm rolling across the land at night. The thunder feels close, rattling the windows. But just as suddenly as it arrives, it can pause. That's how ancient writers described God's authority. Even the angel of death, with all his silent power, moves only at a word from above. He stops when told, not before. Psalm chapter 91 talks about the terror that stalks by night. It's not just poetry. It points to something intentional, a force that knows exactly where to go, who to touch, and who to pass by. That darkness doesn't wander. There's purpose behind every step. Have you ever wondered if even the worst moments in life are still under some kind of watchful eye? I think about nights when I felt a heaviness, and then, out of nowhere, a calm. As if something invisible pressed pause, even for a second. There's another detail most people miss. Judgment is always paired with protection. The angel can't cross certain lines. In Egypt, it was the blood on the doorpost. In the Psalms, it's called a shelter or a shield. We spend so much time fearing what could go wrong, but how often do we notice the boundaries that keep us safe? If you could see every line drawn for your safety, would you live differently? Sometimes, the quietest acts, an unspoken word, a sheltering hand, are the most powerful shields of all. The angel of death in the end times. It's hard to imagine a scene more striking than the vision described in the book of Revelation. There, the angel rides a pale horse across the horizon. He is called Death, and close behind rides hell itself. Unlike stories whispered in the shadows, this moment unfolds in the open. Judgment isn't secret anymore. The whole world is watching. Think about the sound of distant thunder rolling over a city, the kind that makes people stop what they're doing and look to the sky. In those ancient prophecies, the angel's appearance signals a turning point for all nations, not just one. The fourth seal is broken. Judgment sweeps across borders and boundaries, reaching places that once felt untouchable. Would you be ready if that day came suddenly, not to someone else far away, but to your own street? Sometimes I wonder how quickly we would notice if the atmosphere changed, if the usual brightness was swallowed by a heavy, pale light. Would we see the signs, or would we brush them aside until they stood at our own door? There's something about the way Revelation describes this figure. Even as death moves out in the open, he isn't unleashed without limit. He is still bound by orders, still moving only when summoned. No matter how widespread the chaos, he listens for the same voice that called him in Egypt or Jerusalem. I've noticed that many people read these passages with fear, but there's another side. The angel of death remains obedient, never acting on his own. Even at the world's end, there are boundaries and rules he cannot break. Does that surprise you? In the end, it's not darkness that holds the most power, but the command that sets its limits. The angel's emotion and responsibility. We rarely think about what it means to carry out a difficult command. Most imagine angels as distant, unaffected by what they do. But ancient writings hint at something deeper. The angel who delivers judgment doesn't take satisfaction in what happens next. Instead, he mourns. Picture a scene just before dawn, when the air is cool and the sky holds its breath. The angel moves quietly, not with anger, but with a heaviness that fills the space. Some old scholars wrote that obedience for such a messenger is not a mark of power, it's a burden. Each time, he acts because he must, not because he wishes to. Have you ever wondered how it feels to follow through on a duty that breaks your own heart? Maybe you've had to deliver news that brought pain, or make a decision you wish you could avoid. That's a shadow of what these stories describe. The angel is not cruel. He doesn't take pleasure in endings. His path is marked by sorrow, not by revenge. What's striking is that the scriptures never describe him as ruthless. There's no hint of enjoyment, no celebration of the task. He is silent. He leaves with a trace of grief, moving on before the world fully understands what just happened. Do you think real strength is about wielding power or about carrying responsibility, even when it hurts? I find myself wondering if some of the hardest choices in life leave a mark on us too. Maybe the angel's greatest lesson isn't about judgment at all. Maybe it's about the cost of doing what must be done, even when no one else understands. The line between judgment and mercy. Some stories in Scripture come down to a single moment. A pause at a doorway, a breath held in the dark. The angel arrives, but he doesn't rush through. He stands just outside, watching for a sign. In Egypt, it was a streak of blood across the wood. That mark didn't stop him out of fear, but out of recognition. Redemption had already done its work. If you imagine the scene, you can almost feel the tension in the air. The rest of the city holds its breath. Inside, families cling to hope, uncertain if the night will pass them by. The angel moves on. Not because he is merciful, but because his purpose has already been answered by something greater. I wonder how many of us recognize the power of a boundary set by grace, not strength. Have you ever faced a situation where you realized there was nothing left to do but wait? No more second chances, no more appeals. That's what these stories remind us. There comes a point when mercy has been offered and refused, and the next step isn't negotiation, it's consequence. The angel's presence signals a line drawn in the sand. He is not the first option, he is the final one. He only appears when every opportunity for forgiveness has run its course. Even grace, it turns out, has an edge. That's a truth we don't like to face, but it's written deep into every one of these old accounts. Isn't it sobering to realize that mercy, as wide as it seems, is not endless? If you could see the line drawn for you, would you notice it? Or would you step right past, never knowing what you left behind? Maybe the greatest warning in these ancient stories is not about punishment at all, but about the rare and quiet limit of grace. Authority and limits. Authority is a word we throw around, but in ancient stories, it's far more than just a title. The angel in these accounts never moves on his own whim. He waits, silent, patient, for a command that isn't his to give. No matter how urgent the moment may feel, he only acts when he is sent. There's a precision to this that always catches my attention. If you picture a messenger standing at the edge of a boundary, you realize he doesn't decide where to go or whom to visit. Each step is set by a voice higher than his own. Imagine having that kind of restraint, never letting fear, anger, or even compassion make the call. Have you ever wished someone else would draw the lines for you, just so you didn't have to choose? The stories tell us something else too. The angel honors a seal. He won't cross certain thresholds, even if everything inside tells him to go further. In Egypt, it was a mark painted in blood. In other times, it's a sign no one else can see, but he always knows where the limit lies. There's a lesson hidden here. Even death answers to authority greater than itself. No amount of desperation can shift the boundaries once they're set. I wonder how our lives would change if we could see those invisible lines, if we realized how many times something passed by, simply because it wasn't allowed to enter. Does it comfort you to know that power, even the kind that ends stories, isn't allowed to run wild? Or does it unsettle you, imagining that some forces are controlled by rules you'll never see? Maybe the boundaries we fear are also the ones that protect us. The seal of protection. Sometimes, what saves us isn't what we see, but what covers us when no one else is watching. In the oldest stories, there's a detail often missed, a seal that marks the difference between disaster and deliverance. It isn't wealth or strength, not even good intentions. It's a sign, invisible to most, but unmistakable to those who know what to look for. Imagine walking down a dark street at night, the quiet almost thick enough to touch. You pass doorways with no markings, windows shut against the cold. But then you see one, just one, with a symbol drawn across the frame. Would you feel safer stepping inside, knowing the mark was there? Or would you trust your own instincts more? In those ancient nights, only one thing held back the angel's approach, the seal he recognized. No one could negotiate, there was no warning bell. If the sign was missing, the consequence was final. Yet where the seal appeared, judgment moved on without a sound. Have you ever wondered if you carry something like that, even now? A shield that isn't visible, but just as real. Many people think protection is about building walls or locking doors, but the old writings suggest something deeper, a covering that can't be faked or forced. The question isn't just about the past, it's about right now. If you stood at the threshold tonight, would you know for certain you are marked? Or are you hoping luck and routine will be enough? What stops judgment isn't fear or even effort. It's the presence of a seal, a spiritual covering that the angel never crosses. Maybe the greatest safety is found in something far beyond what our eyes can see. When endings arrive, they rarely look like what we expect. Sometimes it's just the way the room grows still, or the faint sound of silence filling the corners. Judgment moves quietly, never with chaos. The true dividing line isn't always visible, yet it decides who stands untouched and who is changed forever. Think back to that night in Egypt. A streak of blood brushed across a doorframe meant everything. No crowds watched. There were no great speeches or thunderclaps. But for those inside, that mark was the difference between mourning and mourning. It's the quiet shields, drawn by obedience, not by force, that matter most. Over and over, these ancient stories circle back to a truth. Boundaries matter more than bravado. The angel didn't choose his targets. He honored a seal, and nothing could push him past it. Even the end of all things must stop at a line drawn by a higher command. The twist is this. No matter how dark the night gets, chaos never writes the final chapter. If you want to see how these boundaries still shape faith and destiny today, I invite you to watch the next video, Namtael, the angel who holds the end of the world heaven's most terrifying secretary. Or share a moment when an unseen line protected or changed you. Drop it in the comments. And if you find value here, subscribe to follow the rest of this journey. What's a boundary, seen or unseen, that changed your story, even if no one else believed it was real?